Starfleet's decision to proceed with Operation Return was one of the largest gambles the Admiralty could have taken. Fleets were pulled from various different battle lines to assault a single target. It would also turn out to be an extremely costly battle, even if resulting in a Federation victory and retaking of Deep Space Nine. This confrontation would create a temporary power vacuum within the Federation territory, as the remaining ships from the operation would have to be redistributed to the various lines. Additionally, the losses taken meant that vessels would have to either be repaired or replaced. Due to this, the Dominion and other ne'er-do-well entities were able to take advantage of the gaps in security. Sectors across the Federation would see their supply chains disrupted. Understandably, this would have an impact to both the citizenry as well as the war effort. It was beginning to be felt at a major level. Because of this, Starfleet began dispatching ships, including those fresh out of space dock, to these hot zones to restore peace and prosperity, as well as to protect vital trade. One of these operations included securing the Merton sector, an area near the Romulan border that had at least one populated planet named Ratir 6.
Co víte o sektoru Merton?
Je to poměrně klidný sektor poblíž romulanské neutrální zóny.
Poslední dobou už tak klidný není. Jen za minulý týden tam zmizela 3 federační plavidla. Podle rozvědky v sektoru operuje několik lodí Dominionu. Naše síly jsou momentálně rozptýlené, přesto však potřebujeme někoho, aby tam zamířil.
A zamával vlajkou a ukázal, že flotila dokáže hájit svoje území. Chápu.
Přesně tak, Jenci.
This planet, unfortunately, was hostile to the Federation, which didn't help since there was a noticeable uptick in Federation starships being destroyed in or near that system. It was believed that several Dominion vessels were operating in the area. Due to this, Admiralty promoted Captain Jans Nansen, a veteran from Operation Return whose ship had been all but destroyed, to Rear Admiral, giving him strategic command of the 38th Squadron. The 38th Squadron was one of the first to have the brand new variant of Norway-class vessels as well. These ships were fast, nimble, and quite powerful. From everything that we observe, the ships appear to be built specifically for war, the bridges resembling that of a Defiant-class bridge or even Galaxy-class battle bridge, with the corridors and other rooms extremely cramped. This could also indicate a return to efficiency and functionality versus that of comfort for the quasi-military. Also, apparently, the captains can color-code their bridges to match their personalities. Neat. There would be 4 of these state-of-the-art vessels in the squadron, which included the Admiral's flagship, the USS Minneapolis, the San Jose, Luanda, and Nuuk. The newly promoted Rear Admiral's plan would be somewhat simple. He ordered all vessels to patrol a different part of the sector. This would ensure that the entirety of the area was covered. The different captains would be given discretion to engage or retreat if the Dominion were encountered. After an initial patrol, the squadron would regroup at Ratir 6. This was largely due to the hostile planet being a central and good staging point for the Federation to conduct operations. While all of this was occurring, Captain Tepler of the USS Luanda would be dispatched to Ratir in an attempt to broker some form of peace and understanding with the government. As stated, the planet was pretty hostile to the presence of Starfleet, and was none too happy that warships were patrolling in their space. The origins of the hostility is linked back to the USS Brittany colliding with a Romulan ship in the past, which caused fallout so bad that the northern continent of the planet could no longer sustain life. Needless to say, they did have a couple of grievances. We can't be sure why Captain Tepler was chosen exactly, but it may be due to her having bad dad jokes that she learned from another Vulcan.
Ale pořád je to důstojnice hvězdné flotily.
Znovu se potvrdí staré vulkánské přísloví. Jenom Nixon může do Číny.
And with everything set up, the ships were dispatched on their various routes. We can't be sure if any other vessels encountered resistance, but we do know that the USS Minneapolis would engage up to 4 Jem'Hadar vessels. The Norway class could pack an extreme punch though, as the vessel effectively was able to destroy 3 out of the 4 ships before the Rear Admiral even got to the bridge. Maybe he just took the long way around. We can't be sure. Things were becoming dire in the battle though, as the Minneapolis was beginning to fold under the sustained fire. With shields down, the captain felt that they would only have 1 shot before the Norway-class vessel was destroyed.
Přímý zásah do trupu, štíty selhávají.
Torpéda jsou připravena.
Máme jen jedinou šanci. Zaměřte se na jejich přík.
Ruším ten rozkaz. Zaměřte se na spodní část trupu.
Admirále.
Splňte rozkaz.
Ano, pane.
Captain DeSantis would order the attack on the bow of the Jem'Hadar vessel, but would be instantly countermanded by the Admiral. Jan would order to attack the underside of the ship instead. This would cause brief confusion, but the tactical officer opted to follow the orders of the Admiral and was able to destroy the Jem'Hadar invader. We'll come back to that order in a minute. After the destruction of the last Jem'Hadar vessel, the ships rendezvous at Ratir 6 and conduct repairs as well as diplomacy. The orders are that they will be in high orbit for the next 2 days, reason being that they needed time to talk with the council of the planet to try and attempt some kind of barter for tolerance of their presence. To a degree, they would need the blessing of Ratir 6 so that they could do this efficiently. While negotiations were underway, Captain DeSantis would request a transfer of command.
A kapitáne, zrovna jsem vás chtěl požádat o hlášení.
Bude rychlé, pane. Chci, abyste tohle poslal velení hvězdné flotily.
Co je to?
Žádost o převelení na jinou loď, pane.
To myslíte vážně, kapitáne?
Naprosto, admirále.
Which would surprise the Rear Admiral Nansen for some reason. Okay, let's get into it. The Rear Admiral, from everything we know, was a great captain, but he is a horrible admiral, at least for right now. I've done a bit of research into this, as well as reached out to fans who have served in the military. The Admiral should really have either had operational control of the Minneapolis, or he shouldn't have. It is really that easy. By allowing the captain to retain control and then countermanding him in the middle of a battle at a critical juncture is an absolutely idiotic thing to do. It causes confusion and hurts battle cohesion. The Admiral is as likely to get people killed in the confusion as he would have if he had just let the captain attack a stronger point on the enemy ship. And yeah, let's talk about that dynamic as well as the intelligence as well. Captain DeSantis is not just one of the captains the Admiral is over in this situation. He is the captain of the Admiral's flagship. This is the right-hand man of the Rear Admiral. Earlier, we see DeSantis reach out to Nansen to find out what the plan was.
Pošlete zprávu kapitánům lodí San Jose, Luanda a Nuuk, ať se za hodinu dostaví na palubu Minneapolisu.
Nadporučíku,
Ano, pane.
jaké máte plány s eskadrou?
To bych raději probral se vším najednou.
The Admiral declines wanting to talk to everyone. This, in my opinion, is again stupid. You should be giving DeSantis all of the plans as well as the intelligence. Also, why the hell doesn't DeSantis, hell, all Starfleet captains and tactical personnel everywhere know about these new structural weaknesses? If it was just discovered, then the Admiral should damn sure tell every one of them. And you can't tell me this would be some sort of super secret information Starfleet didn't want to disperse. I mean, hell, Starfleet likes losing, don't get me wrong, but not to that degree. Come on. The captain has every right to file a complaint and even request a transfer. If we assume that the Admiral had to take command in order to keep everyone on the ship alive, then he should keep operational control going forward. If he wants to return it to Captain DeSantis, then there needs to be a big event and the giving back of command needs to be substantial. The Admiral also needs to share everything he knows to prevent this confusion from happening in the future. This type of thing will ultimately result in people dying if it isn't resolved. And, of course, as is with Starfleet tradition, it isn't. However, there would be bigger problems, if you can believe it. While attempting to fill the peace agreement with the planet, the USS Luanda's second-in-command would be captured by the Dominion and forced to assist them. And Rena, an absolutely beautiful Vorta who may have a thing for Vulcan captains, would beam aboard to confront Captain T'Plur and discuss how she got there.
Bezpečnost!
Neklaďte odpor, kapitáne. A nesnažte se volat o pomoc. Vaši lidé vás neuslyší.
Jak jste se sem dostali?
Naprosto jednoduše. Váš první důstojník byl velmi ochotný a poskytl nám prefixové kódy k transportu přes štíty. Denobulané jsou tak úžasná rasa.
That's not how prefix codes work exactly. Prefix codes gain you access to the computer, but it doesn't mean you can instantly do anything and get away with it. In order for this to work, the Vorta would have to gain the prefix codes, gotten the shield frequency, or modulated them, disabled external sensors detecting transporter use without being detected, disabled internal sensors while transporting on the ship without being detected, disabled communications, at least locally, via the computer or through her fancy remote control without being detected, disabled the computer control at the captain's command level without being detected, and ensured no crew would see or visit the captain's ready room for a good 2 to 3 minutes. I mean, we're talking about the elites of the Vorta and Jem'Hadar here. They don't need to be at this random sector near the Romulan border. They need to be SIL Team 6ing Starfleet Command, if you ask me. And don't even get me started on letting executive officers have prefix codes for absolutely no reason. Regardless, the Vorta, who again is likely thirsty for some Vulcan captain action, would taunt the woman a little bit before beaming the Starfleet crew off the vessel and onto the planet. Again, why the other vessels aren't detecting all these transports happening, we'll never know. The Dominion would take control of the bridge, and again, while it would be noticed that the vessel was going off course, no one would question it, because why would they? After a few barbs with the Vulcan captain, in which the dad-joking Vulcan does get a good jab in,
Jistě přemýšlíte, kapitáne, proč jsem si vás tu nechal. Jednak tu chci někoho z původní posádky, kdyby se vyskytly nějaké nečekané problémy. A pak také budu ráda za vaši jedinečnou společnost.
Pochopitelně. To je typický projev megalomanského chování vyskytujícího se u psychopatů. Chcete obecenstvo, máte emocionální potřebu dokázat si vlastní schopnosti. Předpokládám, že váš předchozí klon byl popraven za selhání.
the Vorta orders an attack on one of the Starfleet vessels, destroying it. Now, without even knowing it, Rear Admiral Nansen has lost 50% of his fighting force, and things were about to get worse.
Červený poplach. Všichni na bojová stanoviště.
With the destruction of the San Jose, the Vorta, named Enrica, orders her Jem'Hadar to begin firing on the Minneapolis. Fortunately, Captain DeSantis was smart enough to change the prefix codes of his vessel when he sees the attempt to override the systems, which really brings into question why every Starfleet ship can get the prefix codes of the other. It does help in unique situations, like that we see in the Star Trek movies, but it seems more of a Starfleet headquarters only type thing when you think about it. If a computer has every prefix code of the fleet, you need but get one starship to cause significant damage to the entirety. But I guess no one questions that. Speaking of bad ideas, the Admiral having not addressed the issue with the captain to determine who's in charge when they're in battle is about to lead to even more strife. Let's analyze the situation so far. The Luanda is firing on the Minneapolis. The captain does save them by changing the prefix codes. I've already talked about that. But still, their shields are severely weakened. They really can't take another hit. Even though the captain has ordered for tactical to return fire, they don't because, I don't know, reasons. So we have the Admiral on the bridge with the captain, and then this.
Vypálte další salvu.
Štíty na 70% a klesají.
Hlášení.
Luanda zničila San Jose. Použili jejich prefix, ale náš se mi podařilo zablokovat.
Kapitáne, Luanda se zase obrací. Na nás.
Připravte se opětovat palbu.
Na naši loď, pane?
Ano, na naši loď. To oni střílí na nás. Palte.
Znovu vystřelili kvantová torpéda.
Štíty další zásah nevydrží.
Leďte přímo k nim. Zkraťte vzdálenost, maximální rychlost.
Admirále.
Hned.
Poručíku, ruším ten rozkaz. To je sebevražda, admirále.
Zásah za 20 sekund.
Splňte rozkaz.
Měním kurz. Maximální impuls.
Otočte nás a ustupte. Pošlete zprávu Nuku, ať nás následuje.
Ano, pane.
Co se stalo?
Ať už Luandu obsadil kdokoliv, pořád používá federační protokoly. Torpéda se neodjistí, dokud nejsou v určité vzdálenosti od lodi, aby ji nepoškodili.
A vy jste zkrátil tu vzdálenost.
Přesně tak. Takže torpéda narazila neodjištěná do trupu.
This is a complete loss of battle cohesion at a critical point on the bridge when life and death is at stake. You have two officers arguing, one that has direct control of his men and then his superior officer. At best, this is a failure of both the Admiral and the Captain. We know from dialogue that Captain DeSantis has been running battle drills. We see him in combat, and presumably this isn't his first outing. How the hell does he not know how his own weapons work? Remember, these are sister ships. Every weapon on the Luanda is on the Minneapolis. Also, knowing if your weapons detonate close to you seems to be a very critical piece of information. Arguably, this is the second time that the captain has almost gotten all of his people killed in front of the Admiral. Overriding him when it suits him is going to get everyone killed at some point. Why this is not addressed is beyond me. And that brings us back to my original concern as well. Again, who's in command here? Well, it's the captain, unless the Admiral just decides, to hell with it. I think I want to own the Minneapolis. It's a shame that this is a short film, as the dynamics should have been more fleshed out, at least in my opinion. And to be honest, I wouldn't have blamed the helm for following either of her orders. Whether it was the Admiral or DeSantis, this is a confusing situation. And let's just reset the stage. The Luanda destroys the San Jose and fires on the Minneapolis. Neither the Minneapolis nor the nuke return fire, but the Minneapolis does pull some skullduggery to prevent from being destroyed. We now have a 2-on-1 fight with the Luanda in one corner and the nuke and Minneapolis in the other, even if the Minneapolis shields are not at 100%.
Vypadá to, že všechno o federačních lodích nakonec nevíte.
Připravili jste mě jenom o trošku času.
Času, který admirál Nansen využije k opravám. Potom to budou 2 lodi proti 1.
The Vulcan captain points out the power disparity between the two, but Enrina counters that it isn't machines that win battles, it's humans. Which is weird for a Vorta to be so fixated on humans, but we'll just ignore that. She points out that the Starfleet personnel won't destroy them because of Tuplur. Hell, she even tells this to the Starfleet ships.
Chce bombardovat Ratir, admirále. Musíte Luandu zničit.
To neuděláte, admirále. Nezničíte vlastní loď s vašimi lidmi na palubě. Naše záměry jsou vám již jistě jasné. Ovšem věřím, že jako příkladný důstojník federace se budete snažit najít řešení, jak svou statečnou kapitánku zachránit. Konec dobrý, všechno dobré.
Admiral Nansen makes it absolutely clear that he wants the Luanda destroyed, and then the Admiral takes command of the ship, but only temporarily, telling them to fire and begin tactical maneuvers.
Útočný vzor Maxwell Delta. Opětujte palbu.
Based on what we'll see in the future, he then just lets the captain have command again? Man, I'm glad this isn't going to cause issues in the next 2 minutes. The 3 vessels engage each other while the planetary government just sits back and lets it happen, I guess. Does Ratir really not have any planetary defenses that could come in and assist or see what the hell is going on at a minimum? Really? I guess if I'm being fair, this can be excused in what we see later, so we'll put a pin in it for a minute.
Nadporučíku, hlaste škody.
Přišli jsme o impuls, protržení trupu na palubách 11 a 12.
Můstek strojovně. Nadporučíku Medrano. Za jak dlouho budeme mít zpátky pohon?
Tady poručík Thompson, pane. Nadporučík Medrano je mrtvý. Snažíme se pohon obnovit, ale bude to trvat alespoň 20 minut.
Ale my nemáme 20 minut. Dělejte, co můžete, můstek, konec.
Snažil jste se jen ochromit a poslat tam výsadek, že?
Dlužil jsem to kapitánu Tuplur.
Again, no battle cohesion. The Admiral wants the ship destroyed, the captain orders to disable it. He disobeys a direct order. Also, this is the 3rd mistake DeSantis has made. This will be 3 times in less than 48 hours he has almost gotten the ship destroyed. This is either due to Admiral Nansen not being able to let go of being a captain and thus tripping up the poor lad, or Captain DeSantis is not fit to command a ship. Not yet. I honestly have a feeling it's a little bit of both. It is a failure from our dearest Admiral to the Captain. Both of them are culpable for any deaths we are going to be seeing. That said, let me clarify for a moment, because apparently it's never clear. What I'm breaking down here is not what the intention of the writer nor the director of the short film, both of whom I've talked to, intended for it to be. I personally think that the actions we see here is the best interpretation of events, but they intended to write it differently. They also see it differently. Also, just because these 2 characters are making monumental mistakes doesn't actually break continuity either. Even in officially licensed materials, admirals and captains make mistakes like this all day long. I just wanted to clarify that these criticisms are actually based on the characters and not the people who made them or even the actors. Sometimes people think I'm saying that it's bad writing or bad dialogue because I have an issue with how they're acting. That's not the case. If I didn't like the writing or dialogue, I just wouldn't do these breakdowns. So if you're here for like hate watching, you'll have to go elsewhere. Anyway, let's get back to the actual content.
Jak je na tom Luanda?
Minimální škody, admirále. Má pouze oslabené horní štíty.
Spojte mě s Nukem.
Admirále.
Jak jste na tom, kapitáne?
Špatně, pane. Přišli jsme o všechny zbraňové systémy a máme ztráty skoro na všech palubách. Štíty jsme obnovili, ale nevím, jak dlouho vydrží.
Minneapolis má zbraně funkční, ale jsme bez pohonu a téměř bez štítů.
It would appear that both the Minneapolis and the nuke are pulling their punches in the battle, only trying to damage the Luanda, while the Luanda is trying to destroy them. This results in both the Minneapolis and nuke taking heavy damage, and the other ship under the control of the Vorta barely being scratched. This makes no sense to me. Even pulling your punches, the Nuke and Minneapolis are ships built for war. Remember, the Minneapolis did a 4v1 against Jem'Hadar fighters and beat them. They should have been able to devastate the shielding of the Luanda, even at half power. With the Nuke and Minneapolis having critical systems issues, the Luanda is prepped to destroy them both. The Vorta boasts that she has defeated everyone and used Captain Tupler successfully to win the day.
Vidíte, kapitáne? Válku vedou lidé a ne stroje. Kvůli vám se pokusili Luandu jen ochromit. A to jim přinese zkázu.
Can I take a moment to say that this would make a great anime or manga? Like, could we see an anime Inra character when she gets mad, or a stoic Captain Tupler not being impacted? This is something that it has to happen. Anyway, for something that will be confusing for the Vorta, the Nuke comes between the Luanda and the Minneapolis, and apparently prepares to ram them. Again, this seems to confuse Inrina, who doesn't understand what they could possibly be doing. This is when Captain Tupler begins quoting Sun Tzu, because it wouldn't be Trek if non-humans didn't outright talk about Sun Tzu.
Ale blokují nám zaměření na svou vlajkovou loď.
Nebo jen možná pochopili, v jaké jsou krajině.
Krajině?
To nevíte, jak Sun Tzu popsal 9 krajin? Rozptylující sluje krajina, jenž rozptyluje síly vladaře, co ve vlastní zemi bojuje.
Převádíme energii do přední štítu.
Nepřátelská loď se obrací.
Smrtonosnou sluje krajina, v níž jen bezprostřední boj nás může zachrániti. Neb jinak jsme v ní ztraceni.
Další takový zásah nevydržíme.
Ještě pár sekund.
Ve smrtonosné krajině bojuj.
Part of this, I think, was the Vulcan trying to distract the Vorta, which she does. Inrina never thinks it through and is caught unaware. There also may have been an attempt to be deep here. And in order to better understand that, I did a bit of research into Sun Tzu and his 9 grounds theory. Never thought that breaking down science fiction would have me research things like this, but here we are. Captain Tupler brings up 2 different types of ground in the 9 ground types Sun Tzu has thought up. This is somewhat confusing because she doesn't distinguish between them very well. I would say that you have to read Sun Tzu in order to get a better grasp of what she's trying to say. She talks about dispersive ground and desperate ground. Dispersive ground is fighting on your own territory. War and battle is always messy, so Sun Tzu suggests never doing that. Don't fight on your own land if you can help it. Keep the mess on the other side of the fence. Desperate ground is when you can't run and you don't have options. I believe Tupler was saying that Admiral Nansen was fighting on both dispersive and desperate grounds at the same time. This means that the Admiral knows it's home turf and he knows he's about to make it messy to win. So in a last-ditch effort, the Nuke seems to be on a suicidal run at the Luanda. However, it is a trick, as at the last minute the Nuke pulls off, which shows that the Minneapolis had fired 4 quantum torpedoes, which directly hit the Luanda and kills everyone on board. This would be the desperate ground. Nansen was willing to kill Captain Tupler in order to get to Inrina. It was a desperate last move. And I'll be honest, this is probably one of the largest issues I have with the film overall. The sensors of the Luanda should have picked up the quantum torpedoes. There's no reason for them not to. Ships can't hide weapons fire, at least not in officially licensed sources. If I was writing it, I probably would have had the Luanda taken more significant damage, specifically to her sensors, and either Nansen, or preferably DeSantis, realize this weakness and come up with the plan. I don't mind the Luanda technically coming out more on top if both ships are pulling their punches, but the fact that it basically took no damage is unreasonable. After the battle, Starfleet reinforcements rush in and they determine that there is a Dominion cell on the planet and that some in the government were aiding them, of which those people are arrested. Remember that pin I was talking about? Let's pull it out right now. If some in the government are pro-Dominion, it does make sense that they would pull their forces back and let the others figure out who would win this battle in space. Remember, this planet is hostile to the Federation and wants them gone. The Federation apparently cares about their opinion and wants to respect sovereignty. That's why they had begun negotiations at the beginning of the movie. So I guess it comes down to, if the planet doesn't want to be pro-Federation and does want to be pro-Dominion, how's it against the law for them to have people in the government that want to help the Dominion? This planet doesn't appear to be a member of the Federation, so why are they enacting their will upon them? Now, obviously, the Federation cannot allow this planet to work within their jurisdiction and be pro-Dominion, at least not openly. So they could quarantine them off and tell them that they're not to have any negotiations or discussions with the Dominion itself. That's a PR nightmare, but it is a military necessity. However, if we're talking about the Federation claims that you can believe what you want and do what you want, so allowing them to have pro-Dominion elements should be allowed. Arresting them seems severe and really only points to that the Federation just pretends to care what a government thinks. And again, this goes along with licensed material, not just a fan film, so I'm with it.
Admirále, chtěl jsem se vás zeptat stran té mé žádosti o převelení.
Ano, kapitáne, omlouvám se. Ještě jsem bohužel neměl čas jí odeslat.
S vaším dovolením bych rád tu žádost stáhnul, pane.
Vážně? Jste si jistý? Vždyť víte, že mám občas tendence osobně velet lodi.
Myslím, že si zvyknu, admirále.
The ending is, of course, the captain deciding to stay, with an obvious reference to another series. With that, Joel's your aunt, Mary's your uncle, and we're off. As I stated on the last breakdown, this is a really good short film. You should definitely go watch it. You can tell the mark of a good production team as well as actors when you want to break down this type of stuff. I'm telling you, it's really good. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.